Hey Eric, we 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 muted all the attendees, so that's why you don't have any microphone access. So this isn't so a meeting so much as it is a tech demo. But if you have questions, please drop them in the chat. I'll be monitoring and answering as we go.
Cool. So in the meantime, what I'll end up doing is we kind of have this exercise that we like to do at the beginning of these demos, and it's really to kind of showcase, just kind of set expectations. So what I'm going to do is go to the next slide, and so we have this sample project that we'll be working in for the entirety of the demo, and we've kind of set aside we've set aside the tasks that we'll be running through. These are some of the project stats for this particular demo model. We have 14 rooms, 79 views, and 6 sheets. Feel free to kind of sit down or write down how long you think it would take to do the tasks listed. We did actually have a demo last week where we sat down with a firm and kind of put together some samples that we'll be using for this demo, but feel free to kind of generate your own expectations on how long it would take to run these tasks, and then we can use those as a comparison throughout the presentation. Okay. So now we'll move into the presentation. So my name is Chris Wiesen. I'm the co-founder and president of BuiltSmart. I also have on this presentation with me Ben Preston. He's the other co-founder. Both Ben and myself are born and raised in Las Vegas. I'm still here. Ben's actually in Washington, D.C., so he's representing the East Coast people. Both Ben and myself have over 15 years of experience in the AEC industry. Ben's gone the more traditional route. I've gone a little bit of a divergent. My side is more on the technology, and the experience is kind of going through working at companies that create content, going the managerial route. Ben is a licensed architect, and so that combination of being in the space since 2006, 2007, we're users, right? So we have kind of come from your guys' shoes where we're in Revit all the time, and we identified opportunities to make things better. And that's what we decided to do. I founded BuiltSmart in 2018, really to kind of come in and make improvements to how this industry works. Recently, Ben just left the architect role and joined me on this journey. So I'm really excited to have him be a part of this process as well. I'm a tech evangelist. I believe that technology done right can make a very big improvement to everybody's workflow. My background doing content creation has allowed me a deeper understanding on how the foundational components work within Revit. And then I also do some of the programming as well. But primarily, Ben is the lead on that. Ben is the CTO. He's the one that is really doing a lot of the magic behind the scenes to make all of this technology function and shine. So just a little bit about BuiltSmart as a whole. These are some of the services that we offer. We're more than just Revit programmers. We have the experience of using all these design softwares, so we can create custom tools for Revit, such as the Foundry that we'll be looking at right now. We can assist with computational design to help streamline and get that process moving. And then also a little bit of data mining. And what that looks like is really going in and extracting some of that data that is already in Revit, but utilizing it so that decisions can be made, right? Identifying project health, things like that. There's a lot of stuff that can be done using that data, and we want people to have access and not have it sheltered away inside of a silo. Another thing that we offer is also office and operations automation. So what this looks like is having your tools, whether it's Word, and Teams or Grasshopper, all of these different tools that aren't necessarily built to talk to each other. Now we can create custom connections that allow them to operate within context. We also assist with administrative and clerical tasks. So if you're going in and you have stuff for your bill tracking, or you're using QuickBooks, there are a lot of systems that can be designed and built to streamline that process. And then we have a technology consultation, and typically for that's more centered for smaller and small medium firms. A lot of larger firms usually have a dedicated person that handles a lot of this, but we do want to make sure that we support the small firms as well. We're not here just to focus on the big boys. We think everybody should have access to this knowledge and this technology. So these are some of the softwares. I'm sure you guys have seen these before. These are the softwares that we can develop tools for. And as you can see, it varies from Autodesk products to Rhino to Unity to Microsoft products and even more. As long as there's a way for us to interact with the software, we can usually find a way to automate some task in one way or another. And then this is going to be our course description. So this is what we'll be going over today in this presentation. The big key things to kind of keep in mind is we're going to be looking at how to create and assign room profiles. We're going to be generating all of the finishes. We're going to be generating outlines. We're going to be generating views, and we'll also go through and tag the views. And then we'll also learn how to identify and maintain the central settings. I want to acknowledge that we have a few people that have been using this tool in the past. We started releasing the first alpha version probably about 6 months to 7 months ago. So we want to really thank everyone who's been a part of this process already. You guys, your input and feedback is what's going into making this product better. So for you all, these are the new features that we've been working on and we'll be introducing for this next version. So we're finally going to have 2024 support. As of 2024 and Revit 2024, we can actually do masking regions now, not being limited just to filled regions for our outline tool. That's exciting. List filtering is a big one, so you can go through, and if you have a large project, as we're going through, you can filter using text. We've included the none option in the view template. So that way, when you're generating these elevations, you can make sure that you have none selected. You don't have to be strong-armed into using a view template. We've done a significant amount of revising the algorithms on the back end for view sheeting and the view outliner. And then we also have command shortcuts. And what that is so if you're in a project and you have a view, instead of having to go into the dialog and go through the UI, you can just hold Control, click the tool you want to use, and it'll run that tool specifically on that view. So if you want to just outline one window or one view that you're in, it makes it really, really easy. And then this is the overall layout for the Foundry suite of tools. We have the Prototype Studio on the far left. We have the number doors, the tag elements, place views, outline views, rename elevations, and create elevations. And we'll be going through all of these today. We also have the settings, application settings, where you can go through and manage all of your settings in one location. This is a really helpful tool to just kind of make sure that everyone is on the same page as far as what those settings are set to within the entire firm. So without further ado, we'll hop into Revit right now. Okay, so first things first, we're going to start to generate some finishes for this project. It's a very simple building, nothing too crazy, but we have kind of added a few different elements just to kind of show the capabilities of the tools that we have. Everything that you're seeing is completely live, so this is real time to for the tool to run, and everything that you can see right now is there's no wall finishes, there's no ceilings, and there's one basic floor, but nothing else is defined here. So first things first, we'll go into our plan view, and we'll go into Prototype Studio. So as I mentioned, one of the new features that we have is the filtering tool. So if I come in here, I can type in and it live filters the list of rooms that are available to select. We have multi-selection, so you can shift select everything. You can do Control A and select the entire list at once. And then you would move your selections using the arrows. A big reason why we designed it like this is it's very similar to how you select parameters in Revit. So we want to make it as simple as possible for users to be able to navigate our UI and not try to pull you into a whole different way of thinking. We have the edit profiles. And so what this is a list of the profiles that are pre-generated, or you've essentially gone and you said, hey, we have these rooms that are present over and over again in multiple projects. I want to set these finishes so that way we can run through and generate them as quickly as possible. So this list can be loaded, it can be shared with other users. We've created a button to where if you have a new project, instead of having to manually create all of the room names and numbers, you can actually you can import the rooms that are in the project, and it'll generate a full list of those rooms. And then from there, you can go in and you can hit edit. And this is where you're going to select the finishes you want for that room. So we have made it easier to supply you with all of for any category. So this is ceiling, floor, and wall finish. The list it updates live. So if you add a new wall finish or if you add a new ceiling, whatever it might be, this list automatically updates. And then what you do is you can just simply select what you want the finish to be. You hit this little arrow and then it makes it active. And then for the ceilings and wall finishes, you can actually set your heights for where you want those to be. Looking at the wall finish, we actually have a pretty cool option, which is you can go in and have it determine what type of finish you want. So you can actually have a wall element applied to as the finish, or, and this is a kind of a unique case, but something that we've included because when we built this tool, it was because we needed it. We had a client who was using line-based families rather than compound wall elements to represent, 4 or 5 layers of finishes. So we built this with that in mind, and it actually supports line-based families as well. So all you have to do is select which type you want to use, and we will be doing painting in the future. But depending on what you select, the drop down below will update to show those, available options. So we'll keep this on wall type. We have the wall finish WC1 and the wall height at 10. Everything else has already been pre-generated, for our demo, so we won't go into too much detail on that. But now that everything is assigned, we can come here, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create the floors. So as I said before, this is a live demo, so you can see right there, we now have floors, and these are floor elements. So if I come to this view right here and select this, you'll see this is a floor. And if you go to 3D, those are all present. So now we've gone through and generated all our floor finishes for this entire building. Next thing we'll do is we'll look at doing the wall finishes. So I'll kind of pull this 3D view so you can see it populate. We'll set this to shaded so you can kind of see as things kind of pop in. So now we'll go back to the launching studio. I'll select all the rooms again, and I'm going to do create wall finishes. Now, this one takes a little bit longer, but there's an algorithm in the back that's actually identifying where the doors are and where windows are in the project so that the wall finish isn't applied over. Now, keep in mind, this is using the line-based family for a significant portion of it, but we did include a couple of rooms over here where you can see that these are the wall elements. Actually, this is a wall element right here. So this is a layer of, this is WC1 that's been applied to this wall finish, and you can see it already cuts out and is joined to the underlying wall. So that way the door is cut out specifically for that. So now that we have all of our wall finishes applied, we can go in and create our ceilings. And we'll run this right now. Now, the reason why we get this dialog is because one of the rooms doesn't have a ceiling element set. So what's happening is it's just saying, hey, by the way, there wasn't a ceiling there. We just want to let you know that one room didn't get the ceiling applied. If we look at this, it was the warehouse back here, but everything else all had a ceiling generated. So now if we go here to this reflected ceiling plan, you'll see that they've all kind of populated right there. Now, we've gone through and we've created all of the finishes within the project. Next thing we're going to want to do is start to do some of the documentation. So first things first, we want to generate some views. Now, previously, and I'll let Ben kind of answer. I saw the chat pop up, so I'll let Ben answer that. Previously, we had mentioned that the rough time it would take to generate the elevations manually would be around an hour, right? And so what we're going to do right now is I'm going to run this tool and we're going to see how long that takes. And I can guarantee you it's going to be less than an hour. So what I've done right now is selected all of the rooms. So we have our options down here below. Now you can go in and we have all your different markers that are in a project can all be referenced here. If you have if you have an individual marker, you can actually use a combined marker as well. So if that option is available, you can actually select this right here and it'll use a central marker with all of the views going around it. I like to run the individual markers just to show the speed at which it places everything. We also have documentation. So that way, if you have any questions on any of these options, that is all available to you. All you have to do is, I'll show it later. You just go to the About BuiltSmart and you click on the documentation and it'll open up a PDF that explains what each of these selections do. As I mentioned earlier, we now have the none option available under the template type. So that way you don't have to, if you have your elevation templates pre-assigned or anything like that, or you have a template assigned to the view marker, you don't have to worry about overwriting that. In this particular case, we'll use the interior elevation marker. And then I will hide these options. And then we will hit accept. Now, as you can see, it's gone through and generated the markers throughout the entire project. And one of the nice things about this is because we set the offset distance from the walls, you're going to have a nice clean look in all the different rooms. And obviously, as the project gets more notes and there's more annotations and dimensions, things will probably have to be moved. But at least starting, you have a nice clean offset from all of the faces that you're going to be creating the markers for. Now, keep in mind, we said it was going to take about an hour, and it took us about not even 2 seconds, right? The second piece of that was the renaming the elevation views, right? Well, this tool actually goes in and based on the room that the markers is located within, it actually goes in and generates the names for all of the markers automatically. And so we add a letter at the very end, so that way it's all sequential. We do have some more improvements in the future on, setting up north, south, east, west. That is one of the comments that we've received in the past. We are going to include that at a later date. Currently, this is the extent of how the numbering works. We also do have a tool if you already have elevations in a project, but you didn't use the tool. We actually have our rename elevation tool that will go through and rename them after the fact. So if you add any other markers, you can run this and it'll take care of it for you. We do have a sequence style here, which allows you to choose whether it's alphanumeric or numeric. And then you can also determine whether you want to be set the title on the sheet. So we do have that capability as well. Now that we've gone through and generated everything, we are going to look at, for example, let's look at this view right here. So this was the view that was generated, and I don't think this is exactly what you want to put on your sheets. There's still a little bit more work to do. Now, typically, what's kind of industry standard is you'd go in and you'd create a masking region around the edge of the view to give it a nice clean look, right? So that is definitely one of those tasks that I dread doing personally. It takes a lot of time and it's just super, super monotonous. And I believe in the at the very beginning, we said it would take about 12 hours to do these 70 views. So what we're going to do right now is I'm going to show you how much faster we can be. So go here, I'm going to select all of the views that were generated and pull them over. Now, as I mentioned before, in Revit 2024, we do support masking regions. It was not an available API in the previous versions. So what I'll be running right now will just be a filled region. But we do have it set. So we have a list of all the loaded filled regions within the project. We have our line style for what we want the outside border to be. And then we have additional options. And what this is it allows us to determine whether or not if a view is cutting a generic model or a casework model, we will overlay that with the filled region or masking region. And then we also have our max view height. And what's important here is that if you have something that's open to above, you don't want to have that thick line going along the top of the view. So this will actually make sure to avoid that. So that way you have a nice thick line on the bottom, but then anything that's supposed to be over that threshold will show to be going beyond. So now I'll run this on all of those views. So we have about 70 views that we'll be outlining, and I'll just hit accept. So we have 79 regions. So currently, as you can see, it adjusted the clipping region, the crop region. And once it finishes loading, you'll see how it already went through and created this line work all the way around here. So if I go to edit boundary, all of this stuff, I mean, this would, just going through and doing this view alone would be not hard, but it would take a bit of time, right? Because you're having to go through and trace every little edge. Now, we just went through and did 79 views just like this throughout the entire project in less than 3 seconds, right? This is a very, very powerful tool. There's a lot of time savings and a lot of relief in not having to go through and do this if you have, let's say, 200 or 300 or even 1,000 different rooms that you're having to create these outlines for. With this tool, it can streamline that to the point where it's just not even a concern anymore. So now that we've gone through and generated these outlines around all the views, the next thing that we logically want to do is place these views onto the sheets. So one of the things that I want to note, so if I come here to this pre-made sheet, we've kind of thrown in some legends and a little schedule here. And the reason why we did this is to show that in this new, as of this version, our tool recognizes elements that are already on the sheet and it avoids them when it's sheeting the views themselves. Now, a typical question we get right here is, well, say I have all these different views, and let's say, it's gonna place them in the order that's shown here. So this is just one long list. So it's gonna place them in this order. Now, we don't support currently, like if there's the last view it can sheet is men's room 109C, it will sheet 109D onto the next sheet. Now, in the future, we do want to create an option that allows you to group them to make sure that all of your views, if there's a specific room, that none of them will be sheeted onto another sheet. But we do not currently support that, but it is on the roadmap. Now that we have the sheet ready to go, I'm going to come in and place the views. So again, I'm going to go through and select all the views present. Keep in mind that if you select more views than can fit on the sheets, it will not create new sheets yet. That is something that we're working on for version 3.0, which should be coming out roughly next month, if not a little bit further than that. But we will have the ability to go through and generate new sheets to accommodate the extra views that are present. So I'm going to come in here and select all of these sheets. And then we've already preset these standards, but you do have the view margin, and what that is, that's the margin around each individual view. The title block left is how far you want it to move in from the left. Title block top, bottom, and then right. So, like I mentioned before, it does accommodate for these placed instances. So now that we have the sheet selected and the view selected, I'll click accept. So you're actually seeing it live populate as it's going. Now, for a few of you that have seen past demos, you might remember that the views were coming in a little bit staggered. We've actually, Ben, I should say, has gone in and spent a bit of time fixing that issue. So now you can see all of the views are all aligned. Now, if we go to, let's see. So if we come here, I'm going to call out Jesse from Jesse. I know when we were when I did the demo for you last week, the bathrooms were looking a little crazy. But again, we've gone through and even within the last week, done considerable work to make sure that the output is looking a lot more consistent. You know, I do want to stress this. This is an open beta, so we're not quite to v1.0 yet. So there will be instances where you might have situations like this. And so in this particular instance, it kind of did the opposite. It outlined the upper area, but it didn't get the internal, I guess, corridor right here. So, you know, currently, if we can get you to 95 to, 90 to 95% auto completed, and then you guys just have to go through and tweak a couple things to get the last 5%, I think we're doing a pretty darn good job. So we do want to make sure that we're not overselling things. There will be instances where things might outline a little funky, but we are working really diligently to make sure that that those situations are less and less frequent. As you can see right here, it did capture the countertop. It went through and outlined that right there as well. So now that we have all of these views placed on all the different sheets, we're gonna run the tag element tool. Now, one of the big things that I like to mention is that the native Revit tag all function, if you're doing interior elevations, what it does is it doesn't really determine what's visible to the end user. And so what happens is it's going through and there's your view box, right? So if I go to level 1 right here and I select this guy. Now this view box right here that goes all the way out to here, what it does, Revit grabs everything that's within this XYZ coordinate plane. And so what you're seeing is that if you tag stuff, if you have a wall finish over here, you have a generic model over here, it'll actually tag stuff that isn't visible. Well, in most cases, that's not what you want. So we decided to come through and update how that functions. And so we'd have a tag all tool that actually goes through and verifies that what you're trying to tag is visible in the view. And how that, in simplest terms, how that does it is it really looks and says, there shoots a ray and it says, hey, if it hits something, if it hits a wall, don't worry about anything that's beyond that wall. Or if there's a wall finish or something like that, it'll make sure that anything that is visible is the only thing that it captures. So we'll come right here. And what I've done is we have the tag elements. So I'm going to select all the views. Pull them over here. And we have our tag options. Now we will be building this out over time. Currently we have we have door tags, generic model tags. We will have wall finishes and things like that in the future. You can actually come here and select which tag you want it to use based on what's loaded into the project. So in most of these cases, we really only have one, but as you can see with room tags, we have a few different options we can choose from. So whatever these are set to is going to be what tag it uses when it runs the algorithm. And then you can see right here, we do have a couple options. We are in the future going to support leaders. So you can actually go through and make sure all your tags aren't necessarily overlapping the finishes and elements themselves. That is not currently handled right now, but it will be something that we are including in the future version. So now that we have this right here, I'm going to hit accept. And again, this right here, I mean, this could take a significant amount of time. And we're able to run through this entire process in a matter of seconds. And then even a couple of people might notice is that we've actually gone in once this is finished populating. Before we were having issues where tags were being generated outside of the view region. We've gone through and updated that, so now it's a lot cleaner. So in this particular case, we use the stacked elements or the line-based family. So I have them able to all be tagged individually. But you can see how even going through here, we have, let's see, it's this one. It's gone through and tagged everything, and this alone is a huge time saver. The more elements you have on your views, the more time it's going to take. And so to be able to run through and just have it handle all that for you is one less thing you have to worry about. And you can see here we have the doors tagged as well. And finally, we're going to go through and look at the number of doors tool. Now, this is one that we don't have a UI for yet, but it is on the roadmap to include more options. There's a lot of little intricacies that firms like yourselves need to have accommodations for. So we will be building that out and including options to make it work specifically for your guys' needs. So first things first, you can see we already have some door tags present here, and they're all kind of, just randomly numbered. A big thing to keep in mind, and something I like to talk about, is the fact that typically, a lot of the door numbering, how it determines the room number is the to and from is based on door swing. So in this particular case, if I had this door swinging out, and on the Revit side, it's saying that the to is the 130 and the from is 104. Now that's, looking at this, that's not how you would want to number this, right? This door is going into the office, and you're going to have people going into it. So this should be numbered 104. Ben has done significant work in building an algorithm that helps to identify expected traffic flow. So it's able to go through and determine that not just using the door swing, but where the people are going to be flowing, that should be how it gets numbered. And Ben can go into a little bit more detail on that after, if there's any further questions on that. But it's pretty fantastic technology that he's put together. So now we'll just hit the number of doors. And you'll see right here that even though the door swing was out, it's still numbered at 104. We have sequential numbering on the doors over here. So our algorithm knew that there were 5 doors. So it started with the 120A. We have 120B, 120C, 120D, and then finally, if I were to tag this, 120E. And that is, in totality, the Foundry offerings. A little bit more, just kind of wrap things up. We do have the About Built Smart. And so there's a couple key things to note. This is where you'd find your documentation. So if you click on Open Docs, it'll open a PDF that is loaded onto your computer when you install the add-in. So it'll just populate it right away. And then we also have an export logs. And this is important because, like I mentioned before, this is still in beta. So we are expecting some things to not function necessarily ideally. If that happens, we want to hear from you guys to know what was causing that issue, and that way we can identify the root issue and then fix it. So in order for us to do that, we are logging. Nothing too crazy. It's really just identifying. It's not project specific. It's identifying the file and the elements that you're selecting and everything like that. And all of that stays on your computer. It's not anything that we see until you send it to us. But what this allows us to do is recreate the issue on our computer so that we can do some debugging and identify what's causing those problems. So this export logs will just put together a zip folder of those logs. And then that in combination with the actual file itself, we can do an analysis and create a fix ideally. Lastly, we'll look at the application settings. So this right here is pretty nice because you can actually go through and define your firm standards, right? So as a firm, you can generate what you want your output to be. But there are instances where a project requires some modification. And so with our tool right here, you can actually go through and set your active settings. And the key piece of this is that you don't want to lose your default settings. So you can always switch back when you're done with that project. These settings are able to be imported and exported. So if you want to share it within the whole firm, that's totally possible. And then you can also go through and reset all your defaults at once. You can, instead of having to click each individual button, you can reset those. And then you can also save it as defaults. So we currently don't have a way for, to lock it down for BIM managers to not have people go through and, change these settings. That is something that we've thought about and we might add into the future. But currently, just be aware that if you do save as defaults, it'll take all of your active settings and set them as default value. It's not a huge deal because you can always import your settings again to reset things back to firm standard. One other thing I will note that I missed earlier on when talking about the editing profiles, we will be supporting Excel import and export in the future. So when you're going through and you have a large list of rooms that you're trying to set up, you can use Excel to quickly copy and paste those settings very, very quickly. The other thing that we'll be including is the option to, instead of just having the combination of office or the room name and number, you'll be able to actually set keys. So you assign a parameter to be what you want it to look for. And if that parameter is matched, it'll use the finishes applied or assigned to that specific room. That is the live demo. We'll go back into the presentation and kind of just wrap up. So this is where we want to talk about the development roadmap. We are currently, like I mentioned, in 0.2.7. That will be available next week. So we're just kind of wrapping up the packaging of everything, and we'll have that link available to everyone to download. Looking into the future, we have the next one is v0.3.0, and so we're actually going to take and improve upon the view placement even further. We will have, again, the automatic sheet creation for those for the view placement. So that way, if you over-select the amount of views, so the amount of sheets that are available, it goes through and adds the sheets as necessary. Looking further, we're going to kind of do a whole overhaul on the prototype studio and really the UI and really simplifying it even further. That is a big piece of the puzzle for us, is trying to make it as user-friendly as possible. So we've taken a lot of notes on some of the limitations of the current UI, and we're going to streamline things even further than that. We will add also the new number doors user interface, so you can actually start to modify and adjust the output from the number doors tool. We have the v0.5, which is going to be where we're going to increase the tagging tool. So as I mentioned before, we'll have leaders and be able to go through and set alignments so that things aren't just being tagged in the center of the element. That'll be, definitely a nice improvement for everyone using that. And then we're also going to be improving the generation algorithms. And finally, we'll be doing v1.0, and our goal is to get that done before the end of the year. We are looking to have it available on the Autodesk store so that everybody has access to it. We are also, keeping in mind that people are going to need some, if a project gets updated and things get moved, we'll be able to run an update tool rather than just going through and having to create something new. So that is a limitation that we want to make sure you guys are aware of. If you have a view that changes, you will have to you'll have to delete the element and rerun the tool to make sure that gets covered. And then in the future, we have a lot of ideas for expansion packs and opportunities to take this even further. And so if as you guys are using this tool, you have ideas on things that you would like to see, please reach out to us. We do have a easy access button. So if we come back here, we do have, if you have an idea, you just click on this. It'll take you to our website where you can set aside or assign a 15-30-minute meeting. And we'd be happy to sit down and talk to you about, making your workflow that much more efficient. And then finally, what I like to do is, this is where in a live demo would be kind of taking questions, and Ben can answer any questions that might have popped up. But we're going to do a little speed run. And so what this is just show that, if you have all your settings set up correctly, this is how fast you can go from, a blank project all the way through to what we ended with. So Ben, do you have anything that you want to answer, or any questions you want to answer?
No, thank you, Chris. I've been typing in the chat and answering them as they pop up. If folks want to raise their hand, I will do my best to kind of unmute you just to streamline the Q&A process. I think we can do that. This is actually my first time being at the helm of a Teams webinar. So yeah, if you have questions, hit raise hand, and I'll unmute you and we can talk. And there's no one raising their hand, which means no one has any questions. You did a great job presenting, Chris.
Perfect.
It's all super, super easy to understand.
I mean, that's the goal, right? Yeah, so just to kind of, talk back to this, we did that entire video was 2 minutes and 27 seconds. And at the very beginning, when we were looking at the overall time, the math came out to around 27 hours to do pretty much everything that this tool, when set up correctly, can do in 2 minutes. This is a very powerful tool that Ben and I have been working on for, over a year. And as I mentioned before, this is something that sprouted due to our own need and our own annoyance with Revit. Not necessarily, while Revit's a very powerful tool, and it does so many different things, with the things that they're focused on are a little bit higher level. So, allowing us the opportunity using the API to come in and solve some of these individual problems is a blessing. So thank you all for being a part of this webinar. Again, we can, if you have any questions in the future, feel free to email me. That QR code actually, Jonathan has a question.
John,
can you hear me now?
Yep,
Chris.
I hear you loud and clear.
How are you? Yeah. No, I was trying to type it in, but I realized you were going to probably stop the webinar. I think we talked about this recently, but on the roadmap, is there any plans to update the masking region or filled region donut on the interior elevations? If you've used the tool to create those masks, and somewhere down the line the geometry changes, how then would you redo or update those regions? Delete I think what we talked about before is delete the existing and then rerun the tool, or is there any plans to update if it has been done?
Yes. So auto update for actually most of the tools is in the works. It does take quite a bit of scaffolding in terms of the kind of amount of logic to track it and kind of tie things together. So we're aiming to have that figured out by v1.0. At this time, we do plan to probably make that an add-in for Foundry. So it's something that on certain tools, depending on the complexity, it might be included in the base version, but that might be something to where we actually move that over to a paid version. I want to be perfectly transparent on that.
Oh no, you should. I think you guys should. There are other developers with similar tools that do it. Yeah, you should be compensated for your work. I think it's an awesome tool.
Thanks, John.
Anyone else? All right. Well, like I was kind of mentioning, this QR code that has all of my details. So if you use that, it has, you can get directly in contact with me. Feel free to let us know any feedback that you have. And yeah, if we also have, I should say this, I'll put in the chat the a significant amount of you guys are beta tester or alpha testers, so we already have your information. But if anybody needs the download link, you can sign up at addins.builtsmart.com, and you can sign in there, and then we will send you the download link. Keep in mind that if you are using it on mobile, the notify button doesn't quite drag down to the form. So at the very bottom, it just asks for your name and your email, and then we can send you that that link.
All right. Good job, Chris. Let's should we wrap this up?
I believe so.
All right.
Thanks, guys. One more time. Appreciate it. Have a good rest of your day.